Star Wars 7x7, episode 2519. Well, there was a bit of a slip of the tongue from Disney CEO Bob Chapek earlier this week, and it has people buzzing about the possibility of a Han Solo show coming to Disney+. We will dissect the whole thing, and you can hear the slip of the tongue straight from the horse's mouth on today's show. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So here's the deal. On the Disney Investors page, there was a link to an audio recording of an event. It says on their site, the Walt Disney Company at the JP Morgan Global Technology, Media, and Communications Conference. And so Disney CEO Bob Chapek was participating in a virtual question and answer session that covered a broad range of topics about various Disney lines of business, including parks and Disney Plus and Studio and all sorts of other stuff. And so he starts talking about content flow and about how excited they are for the future of Disney Plus once everything gets ramped back up again. And it's near the end of that where the slip of the tongue happens. So here is the audio from that particular segment of the conversation. It's going to start with Bob Chapek talking about the content flow, and then he's going to talk about the Marvel stuff they have in the pipeline, and then we'll get to the meat of the issue here. And the relevant part of the discussion happens about midway-ish through, maybe a little further in, where Bob Chapek is talking about how well Disney Plus has done so far, especially in light of the fact that 6 months after their launch, Hollywood basically shut down because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so all of the growth that they've seen for Disney Plus has been kind of on the back of existing content and the content that they were able to pull together just before everything shut down.
And we expect to have full content flow by FY22 or 23 when we're really in the kind of cadence that we want to have going forward. And the fact that, we hit 100 million households in 6 months or 16 months on Disney Plus, despite the fact that we didn't have full content flow, is really an incredible feat, I think. And so in the end, as you know, in entertainment, it really is all about content. I think over the next, basically by the end of the year, we've got 6 Marvel titles. We've got Black Widow. We've got Shang-Chi. We've got Loki. We've got Hawkeye. We've got Miss Marvel. We've got What If. All these great series coming to Disney Plus. We've got Boba Fett from Star Wars, Boba Fett from Star Wars, and we've got Monsters at Work from Pixar. So you look at that cadence of content, and you look at our distribution plans and the great price value that we offer consumers, and we can't but help but be bullish.
So there you go. There's the Han Solo, oops, no, I meant Boba Fett, slip of the tongue. And it does beg the question, does Bob Chapek know the difference between Han Solo and Boba Fett? Or I got to assume that he must, just because of Chris Taylor and how Star Wars conquered the universe. And for pity's sake, I don't think there's a single person on Earth who doesn't know the difference between Han Solo and Boba Fett. I mean, just at the very basic level, right? So that seems like a rather important slip of the tongue to me. And so let's talk a little history real quick. So, of course, there had been talk about whether the Solo: A Star Wars Story movie would ever spawn any sequels or anything like that. And there had been rumors kicking around as early as, I believe, September of 2019 that some sort of Solo: A Star Wars Story spin-off was being talked about for development at Disney+. And then Alden Ehrenreich was the subject of a cover story for Esquire in 2020, and he said that he, thinks that there might be something going on, or at least he thought there was something going on at the time, but nothing concrete. That he's heard some things, but nothing, anything that would be worth hanging your hat on, basically. But those rumors persisted, and eventually even Lando got caught up in the conversation. There was some suggestion of something spinning off where it would be following Kira and Crimson Dawn, and that Lando would be a part of it, and then eventually Lando would spin off into his own show. And well, at the 2010 Investor Day in December, we got the announcement that there would be a Lando show, but that's the only thing that we got. And we didn't even get confirmation that it would be Donald Glover playing Lando. I don't see why it wouldn't be, but that's where we stand right now. Of course, there is some Han Solo / Boba Fett stuff happening right now because that War of the Bounty Hunters big story arc is happening in the Marvel Comics. Whether that is something that rises up to the level of Bob Chapek's attention, I don't know, kind of hard to say. But yeah, the notion of a Han Solo series and then a quick pivot to Boba Fett, it also makes you wonder whether the two are, at all linked potentially. Like, for example, we have the Book of Boba Fett, but would an older Han Solo actually show up, say, as a stinger at the end of a season 1 of the Book of Boba Fett? And I would say that doesn't necessarily seem likely unless you're going to have Alden Ehrenreich play the part, but then be aged somehow in order to play a Han Solo who is 9 years older, 5-6 years older than we saw him in Return of the Jedi. So yeah, it seems like a shaky premise. Instead, it seems more like if this is really a thing, we would be talking about the rumors that have been kicking around where it would actually be taking place in the time period between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and taking place after the events of Solo: A Star Wars Story, so that it could fully involve Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo. And if I'm being honest, there are probably things in development, not just at Lucasfilm, but at every single studio in Hollywood that just never see the light of day. And so the notion of developing a Han Solo series for Disney Plus, well, we do have to consider the possibility that it might not happen, it might never happen, it might actually be something that somebody has talked about doing and that just ultimately never gets the green light. But I have to say, there's that little spark of hope based on this little slip of the tongue, and there's been no additional feedback about it from Disney or from Lucasfilm. There's been no particular comment or walkback or acknowledgement or anything like that. So I guess we'll have to see what happens, which is pretty much what I end up saying at the end of these little moments where we get a little something that may turn out to be something and may not. I don't know. We'll see. But it's fun to consider the possibility that Solo is still on Lucasfilm's radar, and hopefully we'll hear more about it in future Investor Day type events from Disney. Or even just from Lucasfilm straight up. But that's what we've got for the Solo slip of the tongue, and that's what's going to do it for today's episode of the show today. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.